The massive space station called New Harmony floated in the darkness between stars. Its metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Inside, beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most important meeting of the year. The Galactic Council was in session. Lee Tae-ho walked through the long corridors toward the main meeting hall. He was tall for a human, with black hair and serious dark eyes. As Earth's ambassador, he carried the hopes of his entire species on his shoulders. The weight of that responsibility never left him, even after 5 years in this job. The meeting hall was enormous. Hundreds of different alien species sat in special chairs made for their unique bodies. Some breathed water and sat in glass tanks. Others needed different air mixtures that came through tubes connected to their seats. The insect-like Vrelak made clicking sounds with their sharp claws. The rock creatures called granite sat perfectly still like living mountains. Tai-ho took his seat at the human section. Only 12 humans represented their entire species at these meetings. He looked around at all the alien faces and wondered if they would ever truly understand each other. Chairman Veltar called the meeting to order. He was from a species that looked like tall, thin trees with golden bark. His voice echoed through speakers that translated his words into hundreds of languages. Today we will hear the yearly report on galactic biology from Dr. Park Mina, Veltar announced. Dr. Park Mina stood up from the human section. She was a small woman with short hair and thick glasses that made her eyes look larger. She had spent her whole life studying alien life forms. Her hands shook slightly as she walked to the center of the hall. Speaking to the entire galactic, Council always made her nervous. "Thank you, Chairman Veltar," she began. Her voice was quiet but clear. "This year, I have completed a study of all known intelligent species in our galaxy. I looked at how each species evolved on their home worlds." A large screen appeared in the air above her head. It showed pictures and charts that everyone could understand. Mina pressed a button on her small device, and the first image appeared. "Every species that joined our council has an interesting history," she continued. "Each one faced great dangers while they were evolving. These dangers made them stronger and smarter." She pressed the button again. The screen showed the Vrelak, homeworld. It was covered in purple crystals that moved and hunted like living creatures. The Vrelak evolved while being hunted by crystal hunters, Mina explained. These creatures could move through solid rock and would eat anything with metal in its body. The Vrelak learned to build with organic materials and developed their hard shells to protect themselves. The Vrelak in the audience made approving clicking sounds. They were proud of how their ancestors had survived such terrible enemies. The next image showed an ocean world covered in dark storms. Strange shapes moved in the deep waters. "The Threnody people lived in fear of the deep leviathans," Mina said. "These massive sea creatures could swallow entire cities. The Threnody learned to build floating homes that could move quickly when danger came." More images followed. Each one showed a different species and the terrible enemies they had faced. The plant-like Verdani had fought against metal-eating bugs. The flying Ethon had escaped from ground-based predators that shot acid into the sky. Even the mighty Granite had run from volcanic worms that could melt through their stone bodies. "In every case," Mina said, "these natural enemies made each species develop the skills they needed to eventually reach the stars. The constant danger forced them to become smarter, faster, and more creative." The audience listened carefully. This was not new information, but it was interesting to see it all together like this. Mina pressed her button one more time. The screen showed Earth, with its blue oceans and green continents. But something was different about this image. There were no terrible predators, no crystal hunters or volcanic worms, just normal animals that any species could easily avoid or defeat. But humans are different, Mina said quietly. The hall became completely silent. Even the water-breathing species stopped making their bubbling sounds. Humans evolved on a world with no natural enemies that could threaten their survival as a species, Mina continued. Her voice grew stronger as she realized how important this information was. Every large predator on Earth was eliminated by humans as they spread across their planet. She showed more images. Huge cats with long teeth that went extinct. Massive bears that disappeared. Giant reptiles that vanished. In every case, these creatures died out shortly after humans arrived in their areas. Humans are the only known species that became the dominant life form on their planet without being shaped by a natural enemy that could destroy them, Mina concluded. The silence in the hall grew even deeper. Taeho felt hundreds of alien eyes turning toward the human section. Some of those eyes showed curiosity. Others showed something that looked like fear. A Vrelac delegate stood up. Its voice came through the speakers as a series of sharp clicks. Are you saying that humans eliminated every creature that could have been a threat to them? Mina nodded slowly. That appears to be what happened. As humans developed tools and organized into groups, they systematically removed any animal that could endanger their communities. But how is this possible? Asked a Threnody delegate. Water bubbled around its words. Every species needs natural enemies to drive evolution. Without that pressure, how did humans develop intelligence? That is an excellent question, Mina admitted. And I do not have a complete answer. Chairman Veltar raised one of his branch-like arms. The hall became quiet again. Dr. Park, Mina, this information raises some important concerns. We will need time to discuss what this means. Taeho stood up. With respect, Chairman Veltar, I believe humanity deserves a chance to explain our evolutionary history. We did not choose how we evolved, just as no other species chose theirs. Of course, Veltar replied, but his tone suggested that he was not entirely comfortable with this situation. The Council will give humanity time to prepare a full explanation. We will meet again in 30 Earth days to hear your response. As the meeting ended, aliens began talking among themselves in worried voices. Taeho watched them leave the hall in small groups. He noticed that none of them came over to speak with the humans, as they usually did after council meetings. Dr. Park Mina walked back to Taeho. Her face was pale. I think I may have made a terrible mistake, she whispered. What do you mean? Taeho asked. I presented this information as a scientific curiosity, she replied. But look at their faces. They are not curious anymore. They are afraid. Taeho looked around the emptying hall. Mina was right. The other species were not just interested in human evolution. They were worried about what it meant for their own survival. For the first time since becoming Earth's ambassador, Taeho wondered if humanity's place among the stars was as secure as he had believed. The question that had seemed so simple was becoming something much more dangerous. What happened to a species that evolved without natural enemies? And what did that mean for everyone else in the galaxy? The emergency meeting room in the Earth Defense Force headquarters was filled with worried voices. General Kim Do-hyun sat at the head of the long table, his gray hair perfectly combed despite the early morning hour. His uniform was crisp and clean, but his eyes showed the stress of the past 3 days since the Galactic Council meeting. The situation is worse than we thought, he said to the group of people sitting around the table. Our intelligence reports show that several alien species have started moving their military ships closer to human colonies. Lee Tae-ho, who had returned from New Harmony just hours ago, leaned forward in his chair. General, I saw the fear in their eyes during the council meeting. Dr. Park's presentation changed everything. They are not just curious about human evolution anymore. They see us as a potential threat. Dr. Choi Ye-jin pushed her long black hair behind her ear and opened the thick folder in front of her. She was Earth's leading expert on evolutionary biology, and the government had called her in to help solve this crisis. I have been studying the data since yesterday, she said. What Dr. Park presented to the council is scientifically accurate, but it only tells part of the story. What do you mean? Asked Professor Lim Jun-sik. He was an older man with kind eyes who taught military history at the university. The government had asked him to join the team because he understood how conflicts between different groups usually developed. The aliens are right to notice that humans evolve differently, Ye-jin explained. But they are making assumptions about what that means. They think that because we eliminated our natural enemies, we must be naturally aggressive and dangerous. Captain Yoon Hyun-woo, the youngest person in the room, raised his hand. He commanded one of Earth's most advanced spaceships and had spent years working alongside alien crews. Dr. Choi, with respect, maybe they have good reasons to be worried. I have studied human military history, and we do have a record of solving problems with violence. Dr. Han So-young, who specialized in understanding how the mind works, especially in dangerous situations, nodded slowly. Captain Yoon makes a good point, but we need to understand why the aliens are so afraid. Every other species in the galaxy evolved while being hunted by something that could destroy them. That experience shaped how they think about survival and safety. Explain that more clearly, General Kim requested. So-young stood up and walked to the large screen on the wall. She pressed a few buttons, and images appeared showing different alien homeworlds. Look at how every other species developed. The Vrelak learned to hide and build defenses. The Threnody learned to run away quickly. The Granite learned to work together to survive. All of their survival strategies were about avoiding or escaping from threats. She changed the image to show Earth. Humans developed a completely different strategy. Instead of running away from threats, we eliminated them. Instead of building better defenses, we built better weapons. Our ancestors did not just survive, their enemies. They made sure those enemies could never threaten anyone again. The room was quiet for a moment, as everyone thought about what this meant. Tae-ho broke the silence. So the aliens think that because humans eliminated threats instead of avoiding them, we will eventually eliminate any species that could be a threat to us, including them. Exactly, So-young replied. From their perspective, humans are a species that cannot tolerate the existence of anything that might be dangerous. They are afraid that our nature will force us to destroy them before they can destroy us. Professor Lim opened his own folder and pulled out several papers. I have been researching historical examples of what happens when two different groups meet, and one group fears the other. The results are usually not good for either side. What do you recommend we do? General Kim asked. Ye-jin stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the city. We need to prepare a presentation that explains human evolution more completely. We need to show them that humans are not naturally aggressive toward other intelligent species. But is that true? Captain Yoon asked quietly. Look at our own history. Humans have fought wars against each other for thousands of years. Even without external enemies, we found ways to be violent. That is exactly the problem, Professor Lim said. The aliens know about human wars. They know that even when humans did not have natural enemies to fight, they fought each other. This makes them think that humans need conflict and will eventually turn that aggression toward other species. Dr. Han So-young sat back down and looked at everyone around the table. We are dealing with a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature. The aliens see our history of eliminating threats and our history of warfare, and they conclude that humans are naturally destructive. But they do not understand the reasons behind our actions. What reasons? Tae-ho asked. Protection, So-young replied simply. Humans eliminated natural enemies to protect their families and communities. Humans fought wars usually to protect their resources, territory, or way of life. Even our most violent actions often came from a desire to protect something we cared about. General Kim leaned back in his chair. So you are saying that human aggression is actually a form of protection? In many cases, yes, So-young confirmed. But try explaining that to species that evolved by running away from danger. To them, our protective instincts look like predatory instincts. Captain Yoon looked at his reports from the space monitoring stations. General, I hate to interrupt, but we have a more immediate problem. 3 different alien fleets have positioned themselves near our outer colonies. They are not attacking, but they are clearly watching us very carefully. Are our colonies in danger? Tae-ho asked. Not immediately, Yoon replied. But if the Galactic Council decides that humans are too dangerous, those fleets are in perfect position to cut off our supply lines and isolate our colonies from Earth. The room became tense. Everyone realized that this was not just an academic discussion anymore. The survival of human civilization might depend on how well they could explain their species to the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Choi Ye-jin turned away from the window. We have 30 days to prepare our response to the Galactic Council. In that time, we need to create a presentation that shows the aliens who humans really are, not who they fear we might be. What exactly do we need to prove? General Kim asked. We need to prove that humans can coexist peacefully with other intelligent species, Ye-jin replied. We need to show them that our evolution made us protectors, not predators. Professor Lim shuffled through his papers. That will not be easy. Human. History has many examples of different human groups treating each other badly. The aliens will use those examples against us. Then we need to show them examples of humans protecting others, So-young suggested. We need to demonstrate that when humans encounter something that is not a threat, we do not automatically try to destroy it. Captain Yoon looked up from his reports. What if we cannot convince them? What if they decide that humans are too dangerous to exist alongside other species? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Everyone in the room understood what he was really asking. What would happen if the rest of the galaxy decided that the only way to feel safe was to eliminate humanity first? General Kim stood up, slowly. Then we prepare for both possibilities. Dr. Choi, Professor Lim, Dr. Han, you will work on the presentation to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Lee, you will help them understand what arguments are most likely to convince the alien delegates. Captain Yoon, you will quietly prepare our defenses in case diplomacy fails. As the meeting ended, each person left with a heavy heart. The next 30 days would determine whether humanity would find its place among the stars or become the first. species to be expelled from the galactic community. The irony was not lost on any of them. Humanity might be destroyed not because they were naturally violent, but because other species were afraid they might become violent. Fear, it seemed, could be just as dangerous as any natural enemy their ancestors had ever faced. 30 days later, the main hall of New Harmony was more crowded than it had ever been. Word about humanity's unique evolution had spread throughout the galaxy, and representatives from hundreds of species had come to hear Earth's explanation. The air was thick with tension and the sounds of dozens of different breathing systems and translation devices. Dr. Choi Ye-jin stood at the center of the hall, feeling smaller than ever before in her life. The presentation device in her hand contained weeks of research, carefully prepared arguments, and what might be humanity's only chance to remain part of the galactic community. She had practiced her speech hundreds of times, but standing here, in front of so many alien eyes, made her mouth feel dry. Chairman Veltar raised his branch-like arm for silence. Dr. Choi Ye-jin will now present humanity's explanation for their unique evolutionary path. All council members will listen with open minds and fair judgment. Ye-jin pressed the first button on her device. The massive screen above her head came to life, showing an image of early Earth millions of years ago. The planet looked wild and dangerous, covered in thick forests and roamed by huge animals with sharp teeth and deadly claws. "Thank you, Chairman Veltar," she began, her voice steady, despite her nerves. "I want to start by acknowledging that Dr. Park Mina was correct. Humans did evolve differently from every other species in this hall, but I believe the Council has not yet heard the complete story." The screen changed to show early humans walking across African plains. They looked small and weak compared to the massive creatures around them. Early humans were not the strongest or fastest animals on their planet, Ye-jin explained. "We could not fly like birds or swim like fish. We did not have thick armor like many reptiles or sharp claws like the big cats. In fact, compared to most other animals, humans seemed poorly equipped for survival." A murmur went through the audience. This was not what they had expected to hear. "But humans had one ability that made them different," Ye-jin continued. "We could run for very long distances without stopping. While other predators were faster in short bursts, humans could chase prey for hours or even days until the prey became too tired to continue." The screen showed a group of early humans following animal tracks across vast distances. "This hunting style is called persistence hunting," Ye-jin said. "But it was not just about catching food. It was about our ability to never give up. When humans encountered a problem, they did not run away or hide. They kept trying different solutions until they found one that worked." She pressed the button again, and the screen showed the spread of human populations across Earth over thousands of years. As humans developed tools and learned to work together, they applied this same persistence to other challenges. When dangerous animals threatened human communities, humans did not just build better defenses. They studied those animals, learned their weaknesses, and developed ways to eliminate the threat completely. The Vrilac delegate made a clicking sound that the translator turned into words. "So humans destroyed their enemies instead of learning to live with them?" Ye-jin nodded. "That is correct, but please understand why. Let me show you specific examples." The screen displayed images of the massive predators that once lived on Earth. Saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than human hands, cave bears that stood 12 feet tall, giant short-faced bears that could run faster than horses. These animals did not just hunt humans for food, Ye-jin explained. They were so large and powerful that they could wipe out entire human settlements in a single attack. When humans encountered these threats, they had three choices: run away and let the predators control the territory, hide and live in constant fear, or eliminate the threat so their communities could grow safely. And they chose elimination, observed a Threnody delegate, water bubbling around the translated words. Yes, Ye-Jin admitted. But consider what this choice meant. It was not about aggression or a desire to kill. It was about making the world safe for their children. Every dangerous predator that humans eliminated meant that human families could live without fear. She changed the image to show human communities growing larger and more complex over time. As human settlements became bigger and more permanent, this pattern continued. Humans did not eliminate predators because they enjoyed violence. They did it because they had developed a powerful instinct to protect their communities from any threat that could harm them. Professor Lim Jun-sik, who was sitting with the human delegation, stood up when Ye-Jin gave him a small nod. "If I may add something," he said to the council. "Human history shows this protective instinct in many ways. Yes, humans fought wars against each other. But these wars were usually about protecting resources, territory, or ways of life that humans thought were important. Even human violence often came from a desire to protect something." A granite delegate spoke, his voice like rocks grinding together. "But violence for protection is still violence. How can other species feel safe around a species that eliminates threats instead of avoiding them?" Dr. Han So-young stood up next. "That is an excellent question, and it gets to the heart of why we are here today. May I ask the granite delegate a question in return?" The rock-like being nodded slowly. "What would your species do if you encountered a threat that could not be avoided? Something that would hunt down your people no matter how well you hid or how fast you ran?" The granite delegate was quiet for a long moment. We would have to fight." "Exactly," So-young replied. "The difference is that humans evolved on a world where many threats could not be avoided. The predators were too fast, too smart, and too persistent. Running away or hiding only worked temporarily. Eventually, humans had to develop solutions that worked permanently." Ye-Jin took control of the presentation again. The screen now showed modern humans working alongside other Earth species in zoos, wildlife preserves, and research stations. But I want the Council to see what happened after humans eliminated the threats to their survival, she said. When humans encountered animals that were not dangerous to their communities, they did not automatically destroy them. Instead, humans developed a different instinct, the desire to protect and preserve other forms of life. The images showed humans caring for injured animals, protecting endangered species, and creating safe spaces where other life forms could flourish. Humans spent enormous resources to save animals that were disappearing, Ye-Jin continued. They created laws to protect creatures that could never threaten human survival. They built shelters for animals that had no other place to live. This is not the behavior of a species that simply destroys everything around it. Captain Yoon Hyun Woo, who had been monitoring communication channels during the presentation, quietly approached Ambassador Lee Tae-ho and whispered something in his ear. Tae-ho's face grew pale, but he nodded and gestured for Yoon to return. To his seat, Ye-Jin pressed her device one final time. The screen showed images of humans working alongside aliens in space stations, research facilities, and exploration missions. For over 50 years, humans have worked peacefully with alien species, she said. We have shared our technology, our knowledge, and our resources. We have helped other species solve problems and explore new worlds. We have never used force against any member of the Galactic Council, even when there were disagreements. She looked around the hall, meeting as many alien eyes as she could. The evidence shows that when humans encounter intelligent species that are not threats to human survival, we do not try to eliminate them. Instead, we try to understand them, work with them, and build relationships that benefit everyone. Chairman Sati. Veltar allowed a few minutes for the delegates to discuss what they had heard. The hall filled with the sounds of dozens of different languages and communication methods. Finally, he called for quiet. Dr. Choi, your presentation has been informative, but many council members still have concerns. The Vrelak delegate has a question. A tall, insect-like Vrelak stood up. Dr. Choi, you say that humans only eliminate threats to their survival. But who decides what is a threat? If humans feel threatened by another species, will they try to eliminate that species as well? The question cut straight to the heart of everyone's fears. Yejin realized that this was the moment that would determine humanity's future. That is the most important question of all, she replied. And it is why we are here today. The Council's request for this explanation shows that some species feel threatened by humanity's existence. Our response has been to come here, present, evidence, and try to resolve the situation peacefully. We have not moved military forces or made threats. We have tried to build understanding. But what if peaceful solutions do not work? Pressed the Vrelak delegate. Before Yejin could answer, Ambassador Tejo stood up. If peaceful solutions do not work, then humanity will have failed to prove that we have evolved beyond our ancestors' survival instincts. But we believe that understanding and cooperation are always possible between intelligent species who approach each other with good intentions. The hall was completely silent. Everyone understood that they had reached the critical moment. What happened next would determine whether humanity would continue to be part of the galactic community or become its first exile. The silence in the Galactic Council Hall stretched on until it became almost unbearable. Chairman Veltar's golden bark seemed to shimmer as he processed everything he had heard. Around the hall, alien delegates whispered among themselves in their native languages, creating a low buzz that felt like the sound of distant thunder. Finally, Veltar raised his branch-like arm. The Council appreciates humanity's explanation of their evolutionary history. However, we must address the fundamental concern that remains. He turned his ancient eyes toward the human section. Dr. Choi Ye-jin, you have shown us that humans can be protective and cooperative. But you have also confirmed that humans respond to threats by eliminating them completely. This raises a question that every species in this hall must consider. The hall became quiet again. Even the mechanical sounds of the air and water systems seemed to fade away. What happens if another species in this galaxy becomes a threat to human survival? Veltar continued. Based on human history, would humans not feel compelled to eliminate that species entirely? Dr. Choi Ye-jin felt her heart race. This was the question she had been dreading, because she knew that any honest answer would be difficult for the aliens to accept. Chairman Veltar, that would depend on the nature of the threat, she replied carefully. If another species actively tried to destroy human communities, humans would defend themselves. But history shows that humans prefer to find peaceful solutions when possible. A delegate from the aquatic Threnody species rose from his water tank. His translator made his words sound like waves hitting a shore. Dr. Choi, with respect, Human history also shows many examples of humans destroying other human groups that they saw as threats. If humans do this to their own species, what would stop them from doing it to us? The question hit like a physical blow. Ye Jin glanced at Professor Lim Jun-sik, who gave her an encouraging nod. "You are right," she admitted. "Humans have fought wars against other humans, but those conflicts happened when humans were still learning how to resolve disagreements peacefully. Modern humans have developed better methods for handling disputes, but those conflicts show that humans will fight against their own species when they feel threatened," pressed another delegate, this one from a species that looked like walking crystals. "Why would they treat alien species any differently?" Before Ye-jin could answer, Dr. Han So-young stood up. "May I address that question from a psychological perspective?" Chairman Veltar nodded his permission. "The pattern of human conflict has changed significantly over time," So-young began. "Early human conflicts were often about basic survival needs like food, water, and territory. As human civilization developed, the reasons for conflicts became more complex but also less frequent." She activated her own presentation device, and the screen showed a timeline of human history. Human warfare peaked during a period when different human groups were competing for limited resources and had limited communication with each other. But notice what happened as humans developed better technology and could communicate more easily. The timeline showed a gradual decrease in large-scale conflicts over the past several centuries. Humans began to understand that cooperation was more beneficial than conflict, So Young continued. Trade relationships became more valuable than conquered territory. Shared knowledge became more powerful than military force. "But humans still have weapons," pointed out a Granite delegate. "Your military ships are as powerful as any in the galaxy." Captain Yoon Hyun-woo stood up. "That is true, but consider how humans have used those weapons since joining the galactic community. We have never threatened another species with military force. Our ships have been used for exploration, rescue missions, and protecting trade routes from pirates. Yet," added the Vrelak delegate ominously, the single word hung in the air like a dark cloud. Taeho realized that the aliens were not just worried about human nature. They were worried about human potential. Even if humans had been peaceful so far, what would happen in the future? "I understand your concerns," Taeho said, standing up slowly. "You are afraid that humans might someday decide that another species is too dangerous to exist. You worry that our history of eliminating threats might eventually include you." The honesty of his statement surprised many of the delegates. They had expected humans to deny or minimize their concerns. "Your fear is not unreasonable," Taeho continued. "Any species as successful as humans could potentially become a threat to others. But I ask you to consider something important. You have just spent several weeks studying humanity and discussing whether we are too dangerous to exist alongside you. In response, humans came here to explain ourselves and try to address your concerns. We did not build more weapons or threaten anyone. We chose dialogue over conflict." "This time," muttered a delegate from a species that resembled large, intelligent birds. "But what about next time? What happens when humans face a real threat from another species?" The question seemed to echo through the hall. Every alien present was imagining the same scenario. What would humans do if they felt truly threatened by another galactic species? Chairman Veltar seemed to sense that the discussion was reaching a critical point. "The Council recognizes that this is a complex issue without easy answers. Perhaps we should consider a practical solution." "What do you mean?" asked Taeho. The Council's concern is whether humans can coexist peacefully with species that might compete with them or challenge them, Veltar explained. Rather than continuing to debate this in theory, perhaps we should test it in practice. A chill ran through the human delegation. They had not expected the Council to propose some kind of test. What kind of test? Dr. Choi Ye-jin asked, though she was not sure she wanted to hear the answer. A new voice spoke from the back of the hall. It belonged to Reef Singer, a Threnody delegate who had been quiet during most of the discussion. The Council has recently become aware of a unique opportunity to observe human behavior under challenging circumstances. Reef Singer moved forward through the hall, water swirling around his tank. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected a derelict vessel from outside our galaxy. The ship contains members of a species we have never encountered before. Captain Yoon felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What kind of species? According to our analysis, they appear to be apex predators, Reef Singer replied. Their evolutionary history suggests that they developed as hunters of intelligent species. The human delegation exchanged worried glances. This was clearly not a coincidence. The beings are currently in some form of suspended animation, Reef Singer continued. But our scientists believe they could be safely awakened and studied. We propose that humans participate in this first contact situation. You want to wake up a species of intelligent predators and see how humans react to them, Professor Lim said slowly. Precisely, confirmed Reef Singer. If humans truly have evolved beyond their ancestral instinct to eliminate threats, then encountering a species that might be dangerous should not automatically result in conflict. If humans can establish peaceful relations with natural predators, it would prove that they can coexist with any species. Dr. Han So-young stepped forward. And if humans cannot establish peaceful relations, what happens then? The question was met with uncomfortable silence from the alien delegates. Chairman, Veltar finally answered. If humans prove unable to coexist with a potentially dangerous species, then the Council would have to seriously consider whether humans can safely remain part of the galactic community. Taeho realized they were being trapped. If humans refused the test, it would look like they were afraid of competition, which would confirm the aliens' worst fears. If they accepted the test and failed to make peace with dangerous predators, they would be seen as too aggressive for galactic society. But there was a third possibility that worried him even more. What if these apex predators were not interested in peaceful coexistence? What if the aliens were essentially asking humans to prove their peaceful nature by exposing themselves to mortal danger? The Council will give humanity time to consider this proposal, Veltar announced. You have 3 days to decide. As the session ended, Captain Yoon approached Taeho and whispered urgently, Ambassador, I need to speak with you privately immediately. What is it? Taeho asked. The message I received during Dr. Choi's presentation, Yoon replied. Our monitoring stations have detected that several alien military fleets are moving into position around human space. If we refuse this test, I do not think they are going to give us a choice. Taeho looked around at the alien delegates as they filed out of the hall. Many of them avoided making eye contact with the humans. For the first time, he began to wonder if this whole situation had been planned from the beginning. Were they really being offered a test to prove their peaceful nature, or were they being forced into a situation where the outcome had already been decided? 3 days had never felt so short or so long at the same time. In the secure meeting room aboard the human diplomatic ship, the same group that had prepared humanity's defense was now facing an impossible decision. The weight of their choice would determine not just their own fate, but the future of every human in the galaxy. General Kim Do-hyun sat with his hands folded in front of him, studying the reports that Captain Yoon had placed on the table. The news was not good. 17 alien battle fleets have positioned themselves around human colonies, he said quietly. They are not making any threatening moves, but the message is clear. They want us to accept this test, Ambassador Lee Tae-ho said. If we refuse, they are prepared to force the issue. Dr. Choi Ye-jin looked pale and tired. She had not slept much in the past 3 days. I keep thinking about what Reef Singer said. A species that evolved as hunters of intelligent beings. What does that even mean? It means they are predators that specifically target creatures like us, replied Dr. Han So-young. Most predators hunt for food or territory, but these beings apparently developed to hunt other thinking species. Professor Lim Jun-sik spread several documents across the table. I have been researching everything our intelligence services could find about this derelict ship. The information is limited, but what we know is disturbing. Tell us, General, Kim requested. The ship appears to have been drifting in space for thousands of years, Lim explained. Our deep space sensors detected it about 6 months ago, but the aliens have been studying it for much longer. They knew about these creatures before Dr. Park gave her presentation to the council. Captain Yoon looked up sharply. You think this whole situation was planned? I think some members of the council were already looking for a way to test or eliminate humanity, Lim replied. Dr. Park's presentation just gave them the excuse they needed. Tae-ho felt anger building in his chest. So they never intended to listen to our explanations. They had already decided we were too dangerous. Not all of them, So-young interjected. I have been watching the council proceedings carefully. Some species genuinely want to understand humanity better, but others have been afraid of us from the beginning. The question is, what do we do now? Ye-jin asked. Do we accept their test and risk exposing ourselves to creatures that might be impossible to reason with? Or do we refuse and face the combined military might of the galaxy? General Kim stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the stars. There is a third option. We could leave. The room became silent. No one had wanted to discuss the possibility of humanity abandoning the galactic community entirely. Where would we go? Tae-ho asked. There are other galaxies, Kim replied. Other places where humans could build their own civilization without interference. And leave behind every human colony, every relationship we have built, every dream of being part of something larger than ourselves, Ye-jin said sadly. Better than being destroyed, Captain Yoon pointed out. Would it be? So-young asked. If we run away now, we prove that the aliens were right to fear us. We show that humans cannot handle challenging situations peacefully. We become exactly what they accused us of being, a species that eliminates problems instead of solving them. Professor Lim gathered his papers together. Dr. Han makes a good point, but we also have to consider the practical realities. If these apex predators are as dangerous as they sound, approaching them could be suicidal. What do we actually know about them? Tae-ho asked. Lim consulted his notes. According to the alien analysis, they are physically powerful, highly intelligent, and their biology suggests they evolved specifically to hunt and kill other sapient species. Their ship contains advanced technology, but it also shows signs of having been in some kind of battle before it was abandoned. Battle with whom? Yejin wondered. Unknown, Lim replied. But whatever defeated them was powerful enough to force them into suspended animation and send their ship drifting through space. Captain Yoon pulled out his own set of reports. I have been thinking about the logistics of this test. The aliens want us to make first contact with these creatures, but they have not said anything about how this contact would be arranged or what safety measures would be in place. What do you mean? General Kim asked. I mean they could wake these creatures up anywhere they want, Yoon explained, on one of our colonies, near one of our ships, even here on New Harmony. We have no control over the circumstances of this encounter. The implications of this hit everyone at once. The aliens were not just asking humans to prove their peaceful nature. They were putting humans in a situation where they might have to fight for their lives against the galaxy's perfect predators. It is a trap, Taeho said flatly. If we act peacefully and get killed, they can say humans were too naive to survive among dangerous species. If we fight back and win, they can say humans are too aggressive to coexist with others. Either way, they get the result they want. Dr. Choi Ye-jin suddenly sat up straighter. Unless what? So Young asked. Unless we change the nature of the test, Ye-jin replied. What if we do not just accept their conditions? What if we propose our own terms? General Kim returned to his seat. What are you thinking? The aliens want to see how humans react to a potentially dangerous species, Ye-jin explained. But the real question is not whether humans can avoid conflict. The real question is whether humans can build bridges with species that might be very different from us. Go on, Taeho encouraged. What if we propose that multiple species participate in this first contact? Ye-jin suggested. Not just humans, but representatives from several different galactic civilizations. That way, everyone can see how different species react to the same challenge. Professor Lim considered this idea. It would make the test fairer, and it would put other species in the same situation they are asking humans to face. More importantly, So Young added, it would show whether humans are uniquely aggressive or whether any species might resort to violence when faced with true predators. Captain Yoon nodded slowly. And if other species also struggle to make peaceful contact with these apex predators, it would prove that the problem is not specifically human nature. But would the aliens agree to such a change? General Kim asked. They might have to, Taeho replied. If we frame it as a more scientific and fair test, it would be difficult for them to refuse without looking like they are trying to manipulate the results. Ye-jin started to look more hopeful. We could also insist on proper safety protocols and neutral observers. Make it a real scientific study instead of a trial by combat. There is still a huge risk, warned Lim. Even with other species involved, these creatures might be impossible to communicate with. They might attack anyone who approaches them. Then, we all face that risk together, So Young replied, and we prove that dangerous situations require cooperation, not elimination. General Kim looked around the table at each person. So our decision is to accept the test, but on our own terms? I think it is our best chance, Taeho said. We show that humans are willing to face challenges, but we also show that we believe in fair treatment and cooperation. Captain Yoon gathered his reports. I will start preparing security protocols for a multi-species first contact scenario. If we are going to do this, we should be as prepared as possible. As the meeting broke up, each person left with a mixture of hope and fear. They had found a strategy that might work, but they were still about to face creatures that had evolved specifically to hunt and kill beings like them. In less than 24 hours, they would present their counter-proposal to the Galactic Council. Soon after that, they would discover whether humanity's greatest test would be their finest moment or their final mistake. The next few days would determine whether humans were truly the galaxy's ultimate predators, or whether something far worse had been sleeping in the darkness between the stars, waiting for someone to wake it up. The research station called Deep Watch floated in the empty space between star systems, far from any inhabited worlds. It had been built specifically for this moment, humanity's test before the galaxy. The station was larger than most cities, with laboratories, living quarters, and communication centers that could house representatives from dozens of different species. Dr. Choi Ye-jin stood in the main observation deck, looking out at the massive alien ship that hung motionless nearby. The derelict vessel was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its surface was black as deep space, but it seemed to absorb light rather than simply reflecting darkness. Strange curves and angles suggested a design philosophy completely different from any known species. The scan results are troubling, reported. Kang Min-ho, the xenoarchaeologist who had been studying the ship for the past week. He was a quiet young man with careful hands and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The hull material is not just advanced. It is specifically designed to be difficult to detect or analyze. "What do you mean?" asked Captain Yoon Hyun-woo, who was overseeing security for the entire operation. "I mean this ship was built by a species that did not want to be found," Min-ho replied. "Every surface, every component is designed to hide from sensors and remain invisible to other civilizations." Ambassador Lee Tae-ho, who had arrived on Deep Watch just hours ago, felt a chill run down his spine. A species of intelligent predators that evolved to remain hidden from their prey. The multi-species research team had been working around the clock to prepare for first contact. Representatives from 8 different galactic civilizations had volunteered to participate in the test, making it truly collaborative as humanity had requested. But the more they learned about the beings inside the derelict ship, the more dangerous the situation appeared. Dr. Park Mina, whose original presentation had started this entire crisis, approached the group with her latest findings. "I have been analyzing the biological samples we managed to extract from the ship's outer hull," she said quietly. "I wish I had better news to report." "What did you find?" Tae-jin asked. "These beings are not just apex predators," Mina replied. "They appear to have been engineered specifically to hunt sapient species. Their biology shows modifications that could not have occurred naturally." Captain Yoon's expression grew grim. "Modified how?" "Their nervous system is designed to process multiple types of communication simultaneously," Mina explained. "They can intercept and understand radio transmissions, quantum communications, even basic telepathic signals. They are built to eavesdrop on civilizations." "And their physical capabilities?" Tae-ho asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "Stronger than humans, faster than most species we know, and equipped with natural weapons that can cut through standard protective materials," Mina continued. "But most disturbing is their brain structure. Large portions are devoted to understanding the psychology and behavior of other intelligent species." Kang Min-ho set down his analysis tablet. "They are not just hunters. They are hunters that specialize in understanding their prey well enough to manipulate them." The implications of this discovery hit everyone at once. These were not simple predators that might be reasoned with or avoided. They were creatures specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses of civilized species How many of them are on the ship? Captain Yoon asked. Based on the life support signatures, approximately 30 individuals, Mina replied, all in some form of suspended animation, but our scans suggest they could be awakened relatively easily. 30 apex predators designed to hunt intelligent species, Taeho murmured, and we are about to wake them up. A communication alert chimed through the station's speakers. Chairman Veltar's voice filled the observation deck. Deep Watch Station, this is the Galactic Council. Are you prepared to proceed with the awakening protocol? Ye-Jin looked around at her colleagues. Despite all their preparations, they still had no idea how to safely make first contact with beings that had evolved specifically to destroy civilizations like theirs. Chairman Veltar, we need more time to analyze the beings before awakening them, she replied. Our initial findings suggest they may be extremely dangerous. Dr. Choi, the purpose of this test is to determine how different species react to potentially dangerous first contact situations, Veltar responded. Additional delay would defeat the purpose. Captain Yoon activated his own communication device. Chairman Veltar, this is Captain Yoon. Our security analysis indicates that these beings may be more dangerous than originally estimated. We recommend additional safety protocols before proceeding. There was a long pause before Veltar replied. Captain Yoon, the Council appreciates your caution. However, the test will proceed as scheduled. All participating species have accepted the risks involved. Taeho realized they were being forced to continue regardless of what they had discovered. The aliens were either ignorant of the true danger or they simply did not care about the risks. To the research team. Dr. Park, have you found any information about what originally defeated these beings? He asked quietly. That is the most disturbing discovery of all, Mina replied. Based on the damage patterns to their ship and the circumstances of their suspended animation, I do not think they were defeated in battle. What do you mean? Ye-Jin asked. I think they put themselves into suspended animation voluntarily, Mina explained. The ship's condition suggests they were fleeing from something, and they chose to go into hibernation rather than continue running. The observation deck became completely silent as everyone processed this information. If these apex predators had been running from something so terrifying that they chose to sleep for thousands of years rather than face it, what did that say about the universe they all lived in? Kang Min-ho was studying his data tablets again. Dr. Park, I found something else. The ship's navigation records show their point of origin. Where did they come from? Taeho asked. The Andromeda Galaxy, Min-ho replied. They traveled millions of light years to get here, and according to their records, they were not exploring or colonizing. Then why did they come? Ye-Jin wondered. Because they had consumed everything in their home galaxy, Min-ho said quietly. Their records indicate that they systematically eliminated every intelligent species in Andromeda. When there was nothing left to hunt, they came here looking for new prey. The full horror of the situation hit everyone at once. They were not just dealing with dangerous predators. They were dealing with creatures that had committed genocide on a galactic scale. Captain Yoon immediately activated the station's emergency communications. All stations, this is Deep Watch. We need to abort the awakening protocol immediately. The beings on the derelict ship are not just dangerous. They are an extinction-level threat to all sapient life. But even as he spoke, alarms began sounding throughout the station. On the screens around them, they could see the derelict ship beginning to show signs of activity. Lights were appearing along its hull, and energy readings were spiking. The awakening process has already begun, announced a mechanical voice from the station's computer systems. Life support is being restored to the alien vessel. Estimated time to full consciousness, 6 hours. Dr. Choi Ye-jin felt her heart racing as she realized what was happening. Someone had started the awakening protocol remotely, without waiting. For the research team's approval, who authorized the awakening? Taeho demanded over the communication system. Chairman Veltar's voice came back, but it sounded different now. Less diplomatic and more determined. The Council has decided that further delays are unnecessary. The test will proceed. As the lights on the alien ship grew brighter, everyone on Deep Watch Station realized they had been betrayed. The Galactic Council had not brought them here to conduct a scientific test. They had brought them here to face the galaxy's ultimate predators with no escape route and no way to call for help. In less than 6 hours, 30 beings that had destroyed an entire galaxy would wake up to find a space station full of representatives from every major galactic civilization. It was not a test, it was an execution, disguised as science, and humanity, along with every other species that had volunteered to participate, was about to discover what happened when apex predators met creatures that had evolved to be the apex predators of apex predators. The screaming lasted for exactly 17 minutes. Captain Yoon Hyun Woo watched the security monitors as the last of the granite delegates disappeared from view, and then the station became quiet again, except for the soft humming of the life support systems. The granite species has been evaluated, the Apex voice announced pleasantly. Their survival strategies were inadequate. The Vrelak will be next. Dr. Choi Ye-jin felt sick to her stomach, but she forced herself to think clearly. Dr. Park, how many apex creatures are on the station? Based on the energy readings, I estimate 6 to 8 individuals. Mina replied quietly. The rest are still on their ship. Captain Yoon, what are our defensive capabilities? Ambassador Lee Taeho asked. Limited, Yoon admitted. This is a research station, not a military facility. We have some emergency weapons, but they were designed to handle equipment failures and accidents, not combat with apex predators. The question is not how to fight them, said Dr. Han So-young, who had been quietly observing everything from the corner of the security center. The question is why they are doing this. Because they are predators, Taeho replied. It is their nature. No, So-young said firmly. Predators hunt for food or territory. These creatures are not hunting for survival. They are hunting for a different reason entirely. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the Apex voice returned. Dr. Han So-young, you are correct. We are curious to hear your analysis. Everyone in the security center froze. The Apex had been listening to their conversation. You want us to understand something? So-young said, speaking directly to the unseen creatures. This is not about eliminating threats or finding food. This is about teaching a lesson. Excellent, the Apex voice replied, sounding genuinely pleased. Continue. You want the other species in the galaxy to see what happens when they try to eliminate humanity, So-young said, her voice growing stronger as she worked through the logic. You are not just hunting us. You are demonstrating that any species can be hunted and eliminated, no matter how advanced or cooperative they think they are. Precisely, the Apex confirmed. Your council members brought us here because they fear humanity might someday become too powerful to control. We are showing them that any species, including humanity, can be controlled if the controlling species is sufficiently evolved. The horrible logic of the situation became clear. The Apex were not just killing the research team. They were sending a message to the entire galaxy about the true nature of power and survival. But there is more, the Apex voice continued. We are also evaluating humanity specifically. Your species interests us because you appear to have developed beyond the normal pattern of galactic dominance. What pattern? Yejin asked. In every galaxy we have visited, one species eventually rises to dominate all others, the apex explained. Usually that species must be eliminated before it can spread beyond its home system, but humanity has achieved significant power while maintaining cooperative relationships with other species. So? Captain Yoon asked. So we are curious whether humanity is genuinely different or whether you are simply a more subtle form of predator, the apex replied. The next phase of our evaluation will answer that question. Through the station's corridors, they could hear new sounds. Not screaming this time, but the sharp clicking noises that Vrelak made when they were frightened or trying to communicate rapidly with each other. The Vrelak are attempting to organize a defense, the apex voice observed. Admirable but futile. Their species evolved to hide from threats, not to fight them. They will last perhaps 30 minutes. Dr. Park Mina had been studying the data from the security systems. Dr. Han, I think you are right about their motivation, but I found something else in their ship's records. What? So Young asked. They did not destroy every species in the Andromeda galaxy, Mina replied. They left one species alive. The apex voice became interested. Dr. Park, please continue. You kept one species as servants or slaves, Mina said. A species that you could control completely, that would maintain your technology and provide whatever services you needed. Correct, the apex confirmed. Every ecosystem needs managers as well as predators. We selected the most suitable species from Andromeda to serve that function. And now you are looking for suitable managers in this galaxy, Teho realized. Indeed, the apex replied. Most species will be eliminated, but one will be preserved to serve our needs. The question is, which species will prove most suitable? The clicking sounds from the corridors were becoming more frantic. What makes a species suitable to serve you? Yejin asked. Intelligence without aggression, the apex explained. Creativity without independence. The ability to solve complex problems without attempting to overthrow their masters. And you think humanity might fit that description? Captain Yoon asked with disgust. That remains to be seen, the apex replied. Your species eliminated natural threats very efficiently, suggesting high intelligence and organization. But you have not attempted to conquer other species, suggesting you lack the aggressive independence that makes most dominant species unsuitable as servants. The sounds from the corridors suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was somehow more terrible than the screaming had been. The Vrelak evaluation is complete, the apex announced. They lasted 23 minutes, slightly less than predicted, but they did attempt several interesting defensive strategies. Dr. Han So-young stepped closer to the communication system. What if humanity refuses to participate in your evaluation? Refuses. The apex voice sounded puzzled. How can they refuse? The evaluation has already begun. We could choose to fight you instead of running from you, So-young explained. We could choose to protect the other species on this station instead of trying to save ourselves. There was a long pause before the apex responded. When they did, their voice carried a tone of genuine curiosity. That would be unprecedented, they admitted. In all our experience, intelligent species prioritize their own survival above all else. You are suggesting that humans might prioritize the survival of other species? I am suggesting that humans might have evolved beyond the survival patterns you understand, So-young replied. Another pause, longer this time. This possibility had not occurred to us, the Apex voice finally said. If humans choose to protect other species rather than themselves, it would indicate a form of evolution we have never encountered. What would that mean for your evaluation? Tejo asked. It would mean, the Apex replied slowly, that humanity has developed beyond the predator-prey dynamic that governs all other known life. It would suggest that your species has transcended the natural order entirely. And what would you do with a species that had transcended the natural order? Yejin asked. The question was met with the longest silence yet. When the Apex finally spoke, their voice had changed. For the first time, they sounded uncertain. We do not know, they admitted. In millions of years of existence, we have never encountered such a possibility. Captain Yoon had been quietly working on something while the conversation continued. Now he looked up at the others with determination in his eyes. Then let us show them, he said simply. Let us show them what humanity really is. He activated the station's emergency broadcast system, sending a message to every surviving member of the research team regardless of species. This is Captain Yoon to all station personnel, he announced. All remaining delegates are to proceed immediately to the central hub. Humans will provide escort and protection for any species that needs assistance reaching safety. Captain, Tejo said quietly, we do not know if we can protect them. Then we die trying, Yoon replied. But we do not abandon them, the Apex voice returned, and now it sounded fascinated. Captain Yoon, your species numbers only 12 individuals on this station. The remaining non-human delegates number over 40. You are proposing to risk human lives to protect species that your own council fears might be threats to humanity? Yes, Yoon replied without hesitation. Even though protecting them reduces your own chances of survival? Yes, Dr. Choi Yejin said, moving to stand beside Captain Yoon. Even though some of these species supported the decision to test humanity in this manner, the Apex voice pressed. Yes, Ambassador Tejo added, joining them. One by one, every human in the security center spoke the same word. Yes. The silence that followed was different from the previous pauses. It stretched on for so long that they began to wonder if the Apex had stopped listening. Finally, the voice returned, but it sounded completely different now. The casual friendliness was gone, replaced by something that might have been wonder. In 3 million years of existence, the Apex said slowly, across 2 galaxies and thousands of species, we have never observed this behavior. Dominant species do not sacrifice themselves for subordinate species. It violates every natural law we understand. Maybe your understanding is incomplete, Dr. Han So-young suggested. Perhaps it is, the Apex admitted. We must observe this phenomenon directly. Through the security monitors, they could see Apex creatures moving through the station, but their behavior had changed. Instead of hunting, they seemed to be watching and waiting. Attention station personnel, Captain Yoon announced over the